Welcome to the Stratford IP Strategy Academy. In this session, we will go over why you should be paying attention to the fine print of open source software licensing. How does intellectual property play into the usage of open source software, and how can you make sure you are in compliance? Let's find out. The term open source software refers to computer software where the coding is open-ended and publicly accessible. The purpose of this is to allow users to customize and modify the software to suit their individual needs. Often, there is a high degree of customization and integration with individual company infrastructure. Typically, with OSS, information is made available in online communities regarding collaboration, updates, and troubleshooting, rather than being limited to communications solely with the developer or licensor. Well-known examples of open source software would be Android and Firefox. Compare this with Adobe, which is an example of software that is exclusively operated and managed by the developer with no changes made by the end user. There are a number of benefits to using open source software that make it an appealing option for company infrastructure. It's extremely flexible and customizable. Quite often, OSS is chosen because of its ability to be adapted to existing technological frameworks or requirements. It can be a cost-effective option because you are not locked into a specific manufacturer or developer in terms of troubleshooting, updates, and modification, making it very budget-friendly. OSS is collaborative, since the source code is available to anyone and online forums are often available. The very nature of OSS fosters a spirit of collaboration and invites innovation. Finally, it's usually very reliable because the collaborative nature of the product, many people are constantly improving upon and building the original source code and making this information readily available. Because of all these reasons, open source software is a very attractive option for many organizations. But despite its wide availability and customizable nature, it is still a form of intellectual property, and its usage is governed by terms and conditions, and you must operate under these as set forth by the owner. One of the biggest myths about OSS is that because it's publicly available and users can make modification, you do not have to worry about documenting its utilization or adhering to any licensing, and that you are free to use it as you see fit. In order to utilize open source software, users will have to do so under license, which govern how they are allowed to use and distribute the software. Typically not as strict as policies governing closed software. It is still important to adhere to the terms, and it's important to be aware of any rules or restrictions that these licenses set forth. For example, in many cases, open source licenses stipulate that any modification made by users must also be made public, and users are not permitted to charge their own licensing fees for anything generated from open source code. Be sure that developers and programmers are aware of all licensing rules and are diligent about recording all modifications to the source code. Using open source software is a great way to accelerate product development, but the inclusion of any and all open source software must be controlled carefully to make sure that different licensing rules are followed. Note that some potential acquirers may not want any open source software in their products, which may require rewriting a lot of code in order to have a successful exit. In this case, if licensing requirements were not followed or modification not properly documented, remedying this could be a costly and/or time-consuming endeavor. Open source software is a great resource as long as you are mindful of the requirements and follow the proper licensing protocols. It has the ability to accelerate product development because of its customizability. However, the inclusion of any open source software must be controlled carefully to make sure that different licensing rules are followed. Be consistent and meticulous in documenting what you are using and how it was modified. My name is Nathalie Giroux. I hope you found this video useful. You can further your IP strategy learning by watching the other videos available in the Academy. Thank you for watching.